Hi, and welcome. We created this space for people from all walks of life to come together and share their powerful testimonies, life stories, and personal journeys. Whether you're a teenager navigating life or 50 and fabulous, this channel is for you. Our goal is to create a warm, open, and inspiring community where every voice matters. We believe that through sharing stories, healing can happen, and you just might find a story that speaks directly to you. So sit back, relax, and connect with our amazing guests. We're so glad to have you here. Enjoy.
And this is actually our first episode, and I thought, what better way to share it with some of my favorite people? So we have George and Bernadette here today. Say hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi guys.
And they'll just be sharing a little bit about themselves. So, hi guys, again.
How are you, Sarah?
Share us a little bit about yourselves. George, you can go first, and then Bernie, you can follow.
Okay, so there's a lot to tell. I'm almost over the hill. So, grew up in Australia. Lived in the inner west of Sydney, and grew up there. I played a bit of football out that way. Just did whatever guys do. Actually, probably a little bit less than what a lot of guys did. But just grew up in a family very well. I mean, I had a good family upbringing. I come from a family with two brothers and 4 sisters, and a lot of relatives. So pretty much that's about it, really.
Do you have a big family?
Yeah, big family.
How many siblings?
There's 7. There's 7 of us all together.
Oh wow.
Mum and Dad passed away in 2007 and 2008. So we've been we get together with my siblings every year for Boxing Day and for Easter. And so there's a big crowd. And now that all the kids are getting married and having kids and that, there's a big tribe right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Bernie, what about you?
I am Canadian, born and raised in Canada, Lebanese nationality. Both my parents are from Lebanon. I come from a family of 5 children. We're 4 girls and a boy, of which I am the youngest.
Oh wow. Were you spoiled?
Yeah. The older ones say I was spoiled.
Yep.
I know my dad did like me a lot. He wasn't shy in saying that. But no, I had a pretty good childhood. We holidayed a lot. Dad took us to Niagara Falls quite often. Just your typical family. I come from a small town, Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So it's a pretty quiet town, a quiet life, until George swept me off my feet in high school is when we met. And I finished my final year and then never went on any further because, well, we got married and moved to Australia initially, but then we had changed our minds and moved back to Canada, where we had 5 daughters. All of our girls are born in Canada.
So I'll stop you there. How did George sweep you off your feet?
I got to tell the story.
Okay, go
Because
for
if
it.
you tell it, you're going to tell it like it's, but it's real.
Tell us, hey, no lying, yeah?
No, this is
truth.
going to be, she's going to blush.
Okay.
All right?
She's already blushing.
She's already blushing.
No.
But so I traveled overseas with 2 friends, and it was supposed to be a world trip. So we started going to New Zealand. We went to Fiji, Hawaii. We did a bit of LA, then flew to Detroit. One of my friends, he's hungry, buddy.
That's SMR, right?
His auntie is my wife's auntie.
Okay.
So we went to visit them.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who Bernadette was, and he was a cousin, but he didn't know who she was either. But we went there, and we were sitting down, and friends of hers or cousins of hers had told her that we were coming down and show us a good time.
Yeah.
Just take us out and show us. And so I remember sitting at his auntie's house, and all of a sudden this gorgeous girl walks in this room, and I just went, drop. And I was gobsmacked.
So would you say it was love at first sight?
To me, I say it was to me.
And Bernie, you?
He
No
does
way.
say that. No, only because I was asked by my cousin, who we share the same cousin. I was asked by him to just show his own cousin which is George's best friend,
Out.
show him a good time, take him out and stuff. So I guess I was just kind of focused on going to meet this cousin of mine that I really didn't pay much attention. I mean, I wasn't rude. I said hello and I was cordial with him.
She was rude.
But but yeah, definitely once the relationship actually started and we went out.
So I had to go into my handbook of tricks. No, I'm kidding.
But
it
definitely
was
swept me off my
It
feet.
was yeah, it was a kind of it was a funny situation, but I remember we had organised to go out to a tavern, and I said to her cousin, or my mate, I said to him, listen, you know, she's gorgeous. I says, if you don't make a move, I'm gonna make a move.
So just a little information. Arabs usually get married to their cousins, so that's why he dropped that comment. So normal.
Yeah, well, but she's distant,
Yeah.
so she's not close. But anyway,
Yes.
yeah. So he said, no, go for it. Like it was nothing, go for it. And that was it. That's all I needed, you know. So yeah, I remember going out. We were out dancing, and at the time, you know, I drank, so we were drinking, and I remember she was dancing with.
My sisters and friends and stuff that were there.
Yes.
There's some fast music on. We were dancing.
And then
on
the
dance floor.
slow music came on, so I just sort of ran on the dance floor and just took her.
Oh, smooth.
And then started dancing with her, and then I just couldn't hold back. I had to, you know, so I kissed her, and that was it.
First time that we went out.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really
like
shot your
I don't-
shoot.
I don't-
You
I don't
shoot
do-
your shot. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do that, and I don't know why I did that, but I did.
And what was your reaction?
I was shocked. I said, "Oh my gosh, who does this guy think he is?" I mean, we haven't even like started dating.
We don't even know each
This is
other's names.
literally our first night out together.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I was heading off the dance floor because I didn't know the conversation that he had with his best friend. I was heading off the dance floor to go and ask him to dance.
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, he intercepted and and then literally from that moment forward, we were inseparable.
Really?
Absolutely
So
inseparable.
it was just that one kiss.
See,
Yeah.
it's all it takes sometimes.
And those dance moves.
Well, the dance moves,
Definitely
yeah.
dance moves.
Yeah, they had to be
And he
there.
was a good dancer. He
Back
was
in the day,
a really
yeah.
good dancer.
So you guys, how long have you guys been married for now?
This September will
38.
be 38 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very long.
Long time.
And you have 5 daughters together.
5 daughters, 13 grandchildren.
Wow.
So we are
We have a
blessed.
tribe of our own now.
Yeah. Were you
Yeah.
going for a footy team or
Actually, I don't even know.
How
It's just,
many are on a footy team?
there's a lot.
12?
Is
No,
there?
no.
I
No, there's
see, like,
13.
part-
13 for a
okay.
football. I think 11 soccer or something like that.
That's what you were going for.
So we're
But
we
we got all
exceeded that.
girls.
We're going volleyball because it's 5.
Okay.
So we
yeah,
got
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, we've got the boys now with the sons-in-law. So thankfully we have a bunch of good ones. But yeah, now we're very blessed, and yeah, just our plate is full at the moment.
Amazing. So we'll get into the little nitties and gritties. So obviously you guys have had a massive impact on my life. And you guys are currently pastors of POS Edmondson Park Campus. How did you start your walk with God? Like, were you guys just like, I don't want to say churchgoers, but people who just go to church for tradition, or were you guys committed? And when did you start being committed?
Before we came to God, or
Just your whole journey. Like, how did you come to God?
yeah?
Like,
Well,
what
I
did
was
you know before, and what do you know now? Like, how did you have the transition?
so before we got married. I mean, I'm a Maronite Catholic, and when I met my wife, her folks were dedicated Catholics. They were there to church every week, and yeah, so we were Catholic, but I mean, I can't speak for her, but in my younger age, I used to go to church because there was a couple of girls that I liked, so I'd go to church for that. That was it. So as we got older, I mean, I was an altar boy. I hung out with the younger guys there from church. So, but it was never commitment. It wasn't until we got married, and a cousin of ours or cousin of mine that kind of introduced us to the Lord and to, you know, the gospel, the good news. It would have been 1988, I think it was.
Yeah, 1988.
Yeah.
And to us, that was just so interesting. I mean, we come from, as he said, a Catholic background, and it's not really, it's just kind of, you know, that same mass week after week, pretty repetitious. But when we actually started learning about the Bible, it was just so intriguing to be able to read the Bible. I'd never read a Bible up until that point. So to me, it was just a whole new world of knowledge. So yeah, that started our journey, and we got baptized back in April of 1988 here in Australia before we moved back to Canada and had all our children there. And then I'd have to say we became quite committed and involved in 1995. So we've been in church 30 years now. And our kids were raised in church, so it's all we know now. We are quite dedicated and we love it. We're there anytime we can be. Our children are involved as well in the ministry, and we would always have connect groups at our house, a midweek sort of Bible study thing where people could get together, a more relaxed atmosphere. It's kind of like an open dialogue, teaching a lesson, people could ask questions. So we really loved doing that, but it had grown to a point where we had probably 30 or 40 in our home.
But we struggled in our early years.
Yeah.
Because when we got baptized, we were going to move from Australia back to Canada. And my family, they were totally against us. And so we got into a big argument, and it was kind of like, we're leaving and this is how it is kind of thing. Well, my family called her family overseas. So by the time we landed, we got there and we got the 3rd degree straight away. And we were very young. We didn't know how to answer anything.
Yeah.
And so we kind of fell away. We fell away for 5 years or so.
Yeah, something like that.
And the original pastor, Bishop Slack, when I spoke to him about moving to Canada, he gave me a phone number to the pastor in Canada. And I put it in my wallet. And I never touched it for 5 years. 5 years later, I went into my wallet and it's like, oh. And I looked at it, I said, I think I should give these guys a call. So I did. We went, we had a visit, came back. I said, okay, we're going to go visit them. And it's funny that now that we're talking about it, but the memory of when we were in Belmore, the smell of the church and that, when I walked into the one in Canada, it's like, it's the same smell. I don't know what it is. Is it the
Holy
carpet
Spirit.
or whatever, you know, but
Sweat.
yeah. So it was, we started going back, but, you know, there wasn't really a change.
Yeah.
And it was it was a couple of years after that where we actually went to a service in Detroit where we started to, they used to call us Sunday morning saints because we'd go in the morning, we wouldn't go at night. And so when we went to this service...
That's what Catholics do, right? You only go for one service.
Yeah,
If we really didn't
that's
know
right.
otherwise, it's not that...
It's like, don't
we
get too
didn't
carried
want
away,
to.
right? You know, only one service is plenty.
Yeah.
But we went to a church meeting in a place called Romeo, Michigan. And
You remember that.
I remember that
didn't
because
remember
there was so much that happened in that service where, you know, the Spirit of God was so thick in that place where the preacher couldn't even preach. And the place just erupted. People were praying. And I remember I got the Holy Ghost in Sydney, but, you know, I didn't do anything. I just kind of backed away from it. I didn't speak in tongues or anything. And my wife hadn't received it. When we went to this meeting, I got refilled and my wife felt God. And so that was the start of our journey. And that was 1995, I think it was, 1995. So we got baptized early, but it was 1995 when everything kind of changed. And when we came back to Canada, it just, you know, we started, you know, we committed ourselves. And that was morning, night, Wednesday night, Bible study, whatever it was. Yeah. And God did amazing things. I mean, he gave me a revelation. He gave me you know, he gave me a dream with scriptures, and it was just like, this is new. And and God just sort of just took us on this journey, and it's been amazing. It really has. It's been 30 years now, and I'm more excited now than I was 30 years ago. You know, and you said that we played a big impact in your life, but if you want to really look at it, you've impacted our life, because there's you, your brother, and then there's a lot of young people that are in church now that when we see the passion and the commitment that you have, it just gets us so much more excited, because it's like, it's like right now, it's like our family again. You know, more kids are coming, like Father Abraham, here we go, you know. You know, there's kids everywhere, and they're all growing in the Lord, and it's just been amazing.
So you would say 30 years walking with God, and now you guys, I think it's been about 7 months since Ed Park has opened.
Actually, nearly a year since we started our first preview service, because it was
went
in
really
April.
quick. Wow, that went
been
really
very
quick.
fast. More than we ever expected that it would be. It's just been amazing, and I've said before, I didn't sort of feel a call from God, but my husband certainly did, and I always said that I would support him 100% when he was ready to go out pastoring. And God's timing is perfect. I don't think any time before now we were prepared enough for it. With lots of kids, lots of grandkids, life was very demanding. And now that we're empty nesters, it just seemed to have perfect
Everything
timing.
has fallen into place.
Everything fell into place, and we expected this. I mean, we've been to these small type churches where they're held in school halls or community centers, and usually have like 20, 30, 40 people. So we were thinking, if we get 40, we're going to be quite happy. But the Lord's just blessed beyond that, blessed this work in such a mighty way, and we're like regularly running well over 80, averaging, 80 to 100 every service. So,
and we're getting visitors. We're getting a lot of
lots
guests
of
every
visitors.
week.
Just Sunday that passed, we had 14 or 15 visitors. 15
Oh, wow.
visitors, yeah.
Wow.
And lots of Bible studies, which we've always had a passion for, discipling people. I mean, we really believe that that's what God's kingdom is all about, just duplicating ourselves, walking with them in life as they grow closer to the Lord. And we love teaching Bible studies. It's, a round table, and we sit and have discussions, and it's
Get to know people.
Yeah, get to know people.
Yeah.
It's really good that way.
Yeah, we've been loving it very, very much, and it's been a lot more than we ever expected it to be. I mean, running a church is no piece of pie.
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's just that it has been sometimes overwhelming in that, but we've got a great bunch of people. They all put their hands up. So a lot of the work that it gets done with volunteers that just love God. So it hasn't been a burden on us. So it's been, that part of it has just been, it's been great.
So I think some of the questions that I obviously have spoken to you guys about, but like, I think a lot of people would also like to know, like, when running a church, obviously you've witnessed a lot of people who have been hurt from past trauma in like their lives with their family or with friends, or even people hurt by people in the church. If you could give any advice or anything on that matter, what would you say to people, especially people who kind of blame God for bad things happening to their life? So like if someone was to come and say, oh, why does God do bad things to good people? How would you, like, what advice would you give to people like that who are not wanting to come to church or not wanting to devote themselves or have a relationship with God because they have been hurt in the past?
Good question. And I think for us, for me anyway, the easy answer is we were hurt too. So we've got that experience in the sense of we understand what they've gone through. And by understanding that, at least we can kind of relate. We can relate to a lot of these people that, have been hurt, why do people blame God? I think that's the first thing that anybody kind of does, because they think that life is, when God is there, it has to be perfect. And when things go wrong, it's God first that gets blamed. And meanwhile, a lot of the problems is ours, you know. So, you know, I don't know how you would kind of get them to say otherwise, but yeah, I know from experience, a lot of the times when we fall into sin or we get hurt, the first thing we do is we kind of want to pull away and blame anybody but ourselves, you know. So it's this problem or this person, or it's God, you know.
But I think we've been serving the Lord for so long, so we've just been around long enough to know that it's during those times that you draw closer to God, and that's when everything works itself out. We pride ourselves on hospitality and love over at Ed Park. We've heard people say that when they've walked through those doors and they've been searching for a church, that our church really feels like home. And we're so thankful to hear that. But we want to love on people. I mean, that's really the number one thing that Jesus came to earth for, right? Is to love people. And the greatest gift he gave us was a gift of love, and that's dying on the cross for our sins. So there's no greater love than that. And if we try to keep ourselves grounded in prayer and seeking God's will in all that we do, so we pray that we will never misuse or mistreat anyone that comes into our care. That is always at the top of my priority list in praying. I don't think I'll ever feel equipped for this position as a pastor's wife, but I do know that his word says that he will equip us. So I'm just going to trust that and know that as long as I keep praying and trusting in the Lord, he's going to guide us through those difficult situations. Yes, people do get hurt. We've gotten hurt, as George said, but we're on the other side now, and we thankfully, I guess the best thing that we can say is that it never caused us to leave God. We drew closer and we clung even tighter to him, and I think that if anyone does that, we'll always be winners. I mean, the Bible itself says that good things happen to bad people. And bad things happen to good people. Whether you're righteous or you're wicked, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Good and bad happens to everyone. We're living in a broken world, so it's expected that things are going to go wrong and bad things are going to happen. But as long as we keep holding on to God, I think everything's going to be all right.
Even though you get hurt, it's still better to stay in church than it is out in the world, because you're not, unfortunately, you get hurt in church with people that supposedly living for God. And they're the ones that hurt you, because you're the ones that you're going to be interacting a lot with. It's like your family are the ones that hurt you more as well, right? So, but going back to the world, there's nothing there really. You came out of that because of the stuff that's going on. And, you know, when things go bad, you don't want to just sort of go back to that. You want to kind of like trust God. You know, God is the biggest thing that we have is trust in God, because He's the one who takes care of us. People, we're human, we make mistakes.
And when you really stand back and be honest with ourselves when we're in the world and we're not living a righteous life or trying to. When trouble comes our way, those bad people, those bad friends, they all scatter. They're not there standing by your side. But when something goes wrong when you're in church and when you're serving God, if people will be honest with themselves, people are reaching out to them to help. And we're serving a God that never leaves us. Just because we have mistakes and we do things wrong, He doesn't turn His back on us. He's always there for us. Whereas in the world, you know, yes, bad things happened back then, bad things happen now, but at least now we have a hope.
We have a hope, exactly. We have a hope. Yeah.
So what would you say, so if someone has started their journey with God and they've kind of hit a roadblock at the moment where they're not feeling as encouraged, or like, you know, they feel like things are still happening to them and they just want to give up, what would be
What do you mean by things are still happening?
like trials. I
Okay.
think it would be like trials, because I think for me personally, I've gone through a lot of trials and I still go through the trials, but I know that obviously following God is not an emotion, it's a choice. So we have to make that choice. But for someone who is like on the break or just hanging on by a thread, like what advice would you give to someone who is going through that trial and it seems like it's never going to be rainbows, it's just trial after trial after trial? What advice could you give to someone like that that is just barely hanging on, like right now?
Personally, sorry, Bob, but personally, I would tell them not to isolate, not to go into a place where they're starting to think on their own, because it'll do more damage to them. But to get around people that can lift them up, that they have trust with, that they can speak to. Everybody's going to go through trials, you know, and it wouldn't be fair to say that because you've been living for God X amount of years, the trials are over, because everybody goes through them. But don't pull away, don't abandon your church, your friends, and God. That's the time when you need to get closer. You know, because that's the hardest part, is when you feel like, you know, I've got no more, you know, my friends can't talk to nobody, or this and that, and you isolate, and then you start to think on your own, and yeah, it's not good.
And I've always loved the book of Psalms. Like, that is just like an immediate relief for me. Relief and release. I recently was flying alone, and I had a bit of a panic attack because I was like supposed to have a window seat, and I got into that window seat and there was no window. It was just wall. And then two people were sitting next to me, and I just suddenly started to panic, thinking I am not going to survive this flight, because I'm quite claustrophobic and I either need a window seat or an aisle seat. And I literally opened up the Bible on my phone in the book of Psalms and just started reading the book of Psalms. And even we've gone through a trial in our life that lasted 2 or 3 years, and I was reading the book of Psalms through the whole book of Psalms every month. And I just found the healing virtue of those Psalms. David was just going through things. He had his king, his father-in-law, who wanted to kill him, and he was like in hiding from him, and so many things that had gone wrong in his life, and he wrote those Psalms. So when I start reading them, I can really relate, and every time that there's a complaining psalm of something that's going wrong, it tends to end with victory and joy. And I think, like, for anyone who's going through a rough time, that is just such a quick fix, you know, to get yourself out of that rut, renewing your mind, putting that good stuff in, and then of course all the things that George said. But for me, the book of Psalms are just, I can't say enough great things about the book of Psalms.
That's good. That's actually, I think I've gone through a bit of trials, and I've actually reached out to you a few times, and you would send me a psalm to read, and it actually did. It does help. And I think not a lot of people understand that the Bible does have healing power, and it is supernatural, and we don't read the Bible as a history book, but when we read it to get to know who God is and to get to know his story, it has healing power over it.
Absolutely.
And I think one last thing before I let you guys go, why is church so important? So a lot of people will be like, you know, I can do church on my own. Like, I don't need anyone. Like, I have a relationship with God. I don't need to go to church. I don't need a fellowship and whatnot. What's your intake onto why church is important?
You need community. You need people around you. Unfortunately, you're not going to make it on your own. You need people around you, because like I said before, you can't isolate yourself when something goes wrong. If you've got people there, you've got people to support you, to lift you up, to encourage you. And that's what church does. Like, for me and my wife, church is not a thing. Church is our life.
Yeah.
So we don't think, oh, should we go, or, you know, is it beneficial? It's just our life. We just get up, we know what we're doing, we're going. And over the last, 30 years, we've had ups and downs. and every time something happens, God is faithful. And so I don't, for myself, I don't see any reason to push that aside because I'm going through a trial or I'm going through something bad. It is my life. It's not something that I do when I feel good. It's when I feel bad, when I feel good, ups, downs, whatever. And so I try and make that a priority. And yeah, everything else, I mean, when people say I can do this on my own, you might do it for a month, but then you're going to fall back into your old habits because you don't have people around you. You don't have people who say, come on, let's go to church, or let's come over to my place, let's pray, or whatever. You don't have that. So when you don't have that, you're just going to fall back into the old habits, and then the first thing you do is when things go bad, you blame God because He's not there to pick you up. But you need people around you. Yeah, so it's very important. Churches.
And on a scriptural point of view, the Bible says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves. And when two are walking together, if one person falls, the other person is going to pick them up.
Yeah.
And so that's that community aspect that George is talking about. But scripturally, I mean, they always gathered together, and they were teaching in houses and stuff like that. But to come and worship, and we need a teacher. We can, try to interpret the scripture on our own, but the Bible tells us, to have a shepherd in our lives, and our pastors are our shepherds. We have someone that we can trust with our lives and our salvation, more importantly. So we need a teacher. We need to learn. We can all think we have nothing to learn from people, and we've been there and done it all, but we can always learn. As long as we're breathing, we'll always be learning and growing. And to have a community of believers around you to, pull forces together when you're going through something, and have people that have your back and that are praying for you and fellowshipping together. I mean, we are not meant to be islands on our own. We're a part of a community. And I mean, it's proven statistics that you thrive with other people, and people that are isolated, they just deteriorate. So, I mean, just science itself tells you it's better to be in a community than not to be.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one thing that, especially with CAMC, for the last, since 2007 when we started going to CAMC, that alone has been a big or a massive impact on our lives, because our kids were growing and there was no place that we were going to another church, but there wasn't any place for our kids to continue to grow. So that played a big part. And now all my kids are in church. They're all living for God. Some of them sing, some of them do certain things. They all volunteer at Ed Park, and there's just so many advantages to having people around you. So if someone says, oh, I don't need church, I beg to differ. I really do.
And we would love for our own church to have all the different ministries eventually, to be able to cater to the family needs. We want to be able to have a family that can come and serve and, survive in our church, having marriage programs, women's ministry programs, men's ministry programs, children's ministry. We have a Sunday school, thankfully. We'd love to get a youth group going sometime soon, and just be able to have everything that a family needs to equip them and live a godly life with the help of their church.
Yeah, we're thankful that we've got CAMC, because they are such a massive help for us, because we got the young people at church. We don't have a youth program, but they still have an opportunity to be involved and go there. Obviously, at the end of the day, when there's so many, then we'll have to do something. But as of now, everything that we do, we try and cleave to the mother church and get as much as we can out of them, because it only benefits us later. To be able to do what we can do. And the families that are coming in now, they don't necessarily, they live in our area, they don't know about CAMC, or it's too far for them to go. We still need something for them. And so, so it's community yeah, you couldn't do it on your own. You definitely can't do it on your own.
So I know community is a massive thing. So if someone was hurt with someone in the church, that kind of drives them away from coming to church. Or like if they go to a church and like someone judges them, because obviously we're not all perfect. Church is a hospital, we're all broken people, and I completely get that.
We've got a lot of broken people here.
A lot of broken people. And I think sometimes people get pushed away because of that one scenario, and then they think everyone's the same, or they think, oh, this is a cult, I don't want to be a part of this, and this is this and this is that. What advice would you give to those people who have thought like that, have thought, oh, this is like, I don't think this is for me, they're so religious and they think they're holy, and obviously we don't think that, but they've had that bad experience with someone. How would you encourage them to like come back, like encourage them to be like, no, like we're not all like that? Because obviously everyone's going to have a bad experience with someone, because it's just, even whether it's in church, whether it's at work or in the world and stuff like that.
Always.
But it is sad to see a lot of people get discouraged that way. So like, what I know, our church, I know we're big advocates about be who you are, and there's no judgment, and we're a place of love. And I know I've heard a lot of people who come to Ed Park love that, because we're like a family and they feel welcomed in as a family. But to people who have been hurt by previous churches, even like, you know, even in the past, like way back then, what advice would you give to them if they turn around and say, oh, you go to church for the community, but what if the community hurts you as well?
Well, I think that was one of the things that we spoke about earlier was, you know, we as pastors of the church, we've been hurt. We know what it's like. So, and we had the opportunity to leave church, but we chose not to.
Was there ever a point in your walk where you're like, now stuff this, like I'm done?
Oh, look, we had some really bad situations.
I think we may have been done with a specific church, but never with God. Like we sought out another church that believed the way that we did, so we didn't ever want to be outside of a church. And we may have gone a couple of weeks without going to church until we did find a good one. But I think like forgiveness is a big thing. People have to learn to forgive. And we always try, like when situations come up with George and I, we try to talk to the people that are involved and try and get them to see things from somebody else's point of view. And a lot of times you're just being misunderstood. A lot of times today with technology, it can be very fierce out there because messages, text messaging
You hide behind
can be so misconstrued. You know, like there's this etiquette and, you know, you're very short with me. Well, how do you know I was short with you? I just like, for me, like when I'm at work, I'm sending a 2-word response. Like I'm a busy person. So if people will just get together and talk things out, I think so much of the misunderstandings can be reconciled. And that's just taking the time to get together and not just split up without having a discussion, but at least try and talk things out and hear things from another person's point of view. Because even a lot of things that we receive, the way we receive it is just the mind frame that we're in that day. If I've had a bad day and everything's going wrong at work, somebody might say something to me and I might just like trip off and say something I wouldn't normally say, but that was because of the pressure of the day. So if we can just understand that people are human and we all make mistakes, we all have bad days, and we all say stupid things that we need to ask forgiveness for. But to me, when you have a relationship with somebody and you've been friends with somebody for so long, how can you just write them off over one thing they did wrong?
And over a text message too, sometimes.
How many beautiful things have you encountered together over the years that you would write it off over one misconstrued message or whatever? Whatever it was, everything can be settled with a nice little chat. Get together for a cup of coffee, and then if that doesn't work, okay. Well, at least you tried, you know? But don't just walk away and just write them off, because not very many people are out to intentionally hurt you. And most people will say,
misunderstandings.
they're just misunderstandings. And if people will take the time to talk it out with somebody instead of going and telling everybody else about it.
Yeah.
Get them first and say, hey, we had that chat and I feel like things aren't finished. Can we have a chat about it? And I think in most cases, everything can be resolved.
Not only that, we say that we're in like the church is a family. I can't imagine that if I got into a fight with my brother or my sister, my biological family, they're going to cut me off and throw me out. Yeah, we fight, but the next day we're hugging again and everything's fine. So in church, we're a family. We are not all the same. We're all different. We like different things and all that kind of stuff. So yes, there is going to be some friction. But you know what? We learn to get along with each other.
Yeah.
I don't have to
Jesus
agree with
faced the
everybody.
worst of
So.
it. How much was he persecuted while he was here? And he was perfect. He never did anything wrong. So he was the one who didn't deserve anything that he got. And he was able to forgive us all of our sins. If we just look at ourselves and think, what have I done wrong? And have people forgiven me? Yeah. So we owe them that.
He that is without sin cast the first stone, mate.
That's so true.
Yeah,
We
just
all
gotta
have
look at
bad
it.
days. Might happen in a different way for you that happened for somebody else, but we all have fallen short of the glory of God. We all sin.
Yeah.
So whose sin is to say whose is worse than the other person's?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know I said that was the last question, but just one more thing, because there's just so much that, when we talk, we obviously think of these things.
Yeah.
Forgiveness. So forgiveness is a massive thing, and it's, something that we need to build on, because obviously the second commandment is love your enemies the way you love yourself. And that comes with forgiveness. Like, you need to forgive others in order to love them. If someone has hurt you in such a bad way and you say, oh yeah, I forgive you, but you don't feel it, like, how would you explain what forgiveness is? Like, for me, I say again, like, forgiveness is a choice, it's not a feeling. But if someone says, I forgive that person, and then, the next person they see them and they feel all that trauma again, how do you give advice to someone about that? Like, how would you explain what forgiveness is? If that makes sense. Like, how do you forgive someone that when those feelings just keep reoccurring every time you see them? Like, because sometimes we may think we forgive them and we don't, and then we're like, oh, is that resentment? Is that bitterness? Like, how do we do that?
Sometimes it takes more often than not, 1 or 2 times of asking forgiveness or saying you forgive them, or going to God and saying you forgive them. Some hurts are quite deep, and you can't just put a Band-Aid over them. And just saying I forgive you, yes, it's the right thing to do. And scripturally, if we do that, God is going to honor that. But I think that the biggest, with these big things that are big scars, God can help you to forgive. God's got the capacity to be able to change our hearts and our minds. His word in Job says he gives us the intentions of the heart and the intent of the mind. So he's able to change. He's created us. So if we find that when that person's face comes to mind, or we see them and these feelings are starting to come up, then that's a sign of a little bit of the root of bitterness coming up within you. And then you can stop and just pray again. Say, Lord, I'm not expecting to feel these feelings. Like, please help me to forgive them. I want, and you can't explain it, but you just have this peace that that you can say their name and I don't have any ill feelings.
Doesn't bother you anymore.
And I think that's when you know that you've truly forgiven. And you may feel that way the initial time that you forgive, but then things might happen again, and that rears its ugly head, and then you can again go back to God and say, like, I've asked for forgiveness before, but please help me to forgive completely. And he will. It might take time, but all of a sudden one day you'll find yourself free of that, just a complete peace. And it might take a while.
I think when Peter said to Jesus, how many times shall I forgive my brother? He said 70 times 7. So he was understanding that, you're not going to, you might say, I forgive you, but then he does something again. You got to forgive him. Sometimes like, why am I forgiving you for? So sometimes it can be, it takes time.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the wound is so deep that sometimes in order for you to be healed, God's going to have to heal you from that. And you're going to have to look at that person without looking at him and saying, I hate you, I don't like you, why am I even involved? And start to allow God to start to heal you, so when you start looking at that person, you start to see differently.
But that doesn't necessarily mean just because someone's hurt you and you've forgiven them, doesn't mean you become friends again or have that same relationship again. The Bible doesn't expect us to be doormats. I mean, for your safety, you stay away from that person because you know that it's bad for your mental well-being or whatever it is. But just because you've forgiven, it's the right thing to do, and you've done right in God's eyes. But no one says you have to go be best friends with them again. You know, that's not a part of the,
Yeah.
But forgiveness has to take place.
Yeah.
Yeah. But forgiveness is that thing where you know when you've got that bitterness and you're angry with somebody and you're thinking that you drink the poison and they're the ones who are going to die from it. That's not the way it works. You're the one who's going to die. You're the one who's going to die from that unforgiveness, you know?
Yeah.
So to be able to release yourself from that, yes, you need to forgive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize when you forgive someone, it's more for yourself, because
Absolutely.
when you have unforgiveness in your heart, like that other person won't even care like how you're feeling.
They don't even know
It's
sometimes,
more for
right?
yourself. So
Yeah.
I think that's also a big thing to know, is forgiveness is not just for others, it's just for you to heal.
It's for
as
you.
well, yeah.
And plus, if you ask God for forgiveness and you've got unforgiveness, then God's not going to listen to you. So it is for you. So you need to make sure that you forgive so God can forgive you.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are. We're a bunch of sinners and we need forgiveness, and so we need to do that. And unfortunately, sometimes you're right. Sometimes it can be a point where it could be a hurt and it could be a struggle. But God is there always to help us through that time of struggle. So very good.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining. I know we'll have plenty of more conversations. But yeah, thank you for joining. And yeah, it was great.
Thank you for choosing us for your first time.
Always.
That's
Always.
pretty cool.
Very good. Very good.
But yeah, we will stay tuned, because I will be bringing them for other things such as like baptism and prayer and fasting and all that kind of stuff, which I think you guys would shed a lot of light, which is really good. But yeah, thank you for being on Sarah is a Blogger.
You're welcome.
Syria.
Okay.
Sarah is a blogger.
All right, we'll catch you guys soon. See you later.
You.